moving on in the topic of AI, digging deep with a panel that is going to be looking at generative AI specifically and at the competitive advantages for enterprises. We've brought together some of the sharpest minds from various parts of the industry, and I'm very pleased to tell you that we have an expert moderating this panel. She's a member of the management board at Bitkom. Please welcome Susanna Demel and her panelists.
Thank you, Sarah, and hello, everybody. I'm really happy to present to you this panel now on generative AI as competitive advantage for enterprises. I will introduce to you the panel as I go through with questions that might save us a little time. And I'm going to start with Anna Christmann, to my right, and Anna is a well-known German politician, member of parliament for the Greens, and also responsible as a commissioner for the digital economy and startups in the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. Anna, welcome, and I'd like to start with your view on the currently ongoing groundbreaking developments in the field of generative AI. What's your perspective, the policy perspective on this phenomenon, and how do you think can we use generative AI in a really impactful and meaningful way?
Yeah, thank you, Susanne. I'm happy to be here, and I think, everyone is talking, of course, about generative AI now that everyone can try it. And I think that is interesting from a policy perspective, that really the public debate has changed a lot just since this moment that everyone can try ChatGPT and things. The technology has been already there also before, but now this is a very important point, I think, for the public debate, that we see what these systems can do actually and at home. And for me as a policymaker or as a member of the government, in fact, it's a question, how can we ensure that we have the competence in Germany, in Europe, to really be able to shape these kind of systems in the way that they can help our society and not being dependent too much on systems that are developed all around the world and where we just will be the users and can't really act actively in shaping these kind of systems. So for me, that just shows that we really need both ways. We need the companies, the startups, we just heard Aleph Alpha, that really develop these kind of technologies here in Germany, in Europe, and we must see how we can support them. And on the other hand, of course, we must only see where might be risks that are really fundamental for some fundamental rights in Europe. But I think both is very important, and we shouldn't just focus on one or the other side, because then we won't be able to really use the potentials, and I think they are huge. In every sector, I think they will really play a relevant role, including the public sector. I think also for the public sector as a customer, these kind of systems are really interesting.
All right, thank you, Anna. We also have a startup on stage here. We come to you later, Chris. I welcome Claire Helffer-de. She's leading generative AI for enterprise in the DACH region at NVIDIA. And your role is to facilitate adoption of AI across organizations. And Claire, we just talked about we need to develop the right competences. So your company is also providing some important technical basis for the technology. So you're a technology leader in providing the baseline technology behind generative AI, really. Could you explain a little about NVIDIA's role in enabling generative AI across the globe, and what are you doing in Germany to enable both, like the public and the private sector, to use generative AI, actually?
Yes, sure, thank you. The way NVIDIA has been helping the AIs in the last 10 years, mostly, and generative AI more recently, is mostly by building the underlying platform to be able to train these models. 10 years ago, when the first deep learning development started, sorry, just having a bit of feedback effect, we didn't have any compute infrastructure that was able to carry that kind of development. Basically, OpenAI, for instance, would have needed 100 years to train a model like GPT-3. So there was a massive blocker, which was linked to the lack of compute infrastructure capable to scale and to carry that kind of AI training. And what NVIDIA did is build a platform which is not only hardware, it's actually also networking components, so the chip itself, but the networking components, and also a whole software stack that comes on top to optimize the hardware to enable the training of this large language model. And by doing so, we also engage with the whole community of AI developers to understand what were the requirements. We also develop our own models to understand this better and be able to bring that technology to the level of maturity where it is right now. And in Germany, more specifically, we basically engage, of course, with all the startup scenes. So we have a program called Inception, where Lengoo is part of. I think Helffer-de was previously on stage, was part of it as well, or DeepL, just to name a few. But basically, we try to help all the generative AI startups in Germany to get access to that kind of infrastructure and advise how to train models best. And we're also working very closely with the local regional provider of data center infrastructure. Something, for example, of the open telecom cloud, not only the hyperscaler, but also encourage here more compute capability in Germany.
All right, thanks. And we come to our next speaker, and this is Christine Wang. You're the managing director at the Lufthansa Innovation Hub, and as you told me, it's all about building new business models around traveling and mobility, or also new applications. You have a lot of experience and knowledge in innovation and entrepreneurship. You have been in China, CEO of an AI startup in Shanghai, and you've also done global strategy at Alibaba. So what is, when we talk about the Lufthansa Innovation Hub, there you're thinking strategically on how to use generative AI for and other innovative technologies, obviously, in this sector. So what do you actually do within the Lufthansa Group and for the ecosystem, and what do you think is the maturity of the application scenarios within your ecosystem already?
Sure, I think that's thank you for the question. I'm really happy to be here. I think it's very important to distinguish exactly what we do. So obviously, as the Lufthansa Group, we look at AI as a whole, how to enable better customer servicing, operational efficiency, all the topics you guys probably also look at. What the Lufthansa Innovation Hub exactly does is really to look at the traveler in the center and really understanding how can we apply different technologies such as AI, such as blockchain, metaverse, all these different technologies to the use case of traveling and moving around, basically. And so we look at it from various angles. So, for example, we look at it from a research angle to understand what are some of the trends currently emerging, what are some of the startups emerging within the spaces, and also putting out some hypotheses what we believe the future will actually look like. A second thing we do is we also build around these technologies. So, for example, we're currently building a booking service platform called Swifty.so in MVP stage, so everyone can actually take a look and sign up for it. But essentially, it's a way for business traveler to book its travel, his or her travel, much easier. And through a an AI interface. The way I like to describe that is a little bit whenever you go to a new city, essentially what you would love to have is this one friend, this one local friend that you can just text, hey, I want to have a coffee somewhere here in this where I am right now. Can you just ping me back a location? So we bring this idea back into the business context and also want to allow this ease of use and this new interface and want to test it. So we do this for small, medium enterprises, for business freelancers, so to speak. And so those are the kind of things that we do on that side. And then at the same time, what we also do is we also want to enable the Lufthansa Group to use these technologies for their own purposes, to become more innovative, to use it, to really have this digital leadership.
Great, great. And last but not least, we have Christopher here. Christopher, you're the founder of Lengoo, which is a startup which was founded as a startup for custom multilingual and multimodal language models, if I put that right. Maybe you can tell us a little more. What are you actually providing to your customers, and how does this impact their processes? How do your products actually help them, and how does that look?
Sure. Well, first of all, also thank you from my side for having me. I'm very happy to contribute to the discussion. And yes, we've been working with this underlying technology of generative AI for now more than 5 years. What we essentially do is we help organizations to train and operate their own custom sovereign large language model. We work by now already with around 50 enterprises, and they really work with us for the mere reason that they have understood that it's not only the technology that's important, it's to use their proprietary data to get to a quality level of these models that it's actually applicable in a B2B use case. When you talk a little bit about what it actually means for our customers, the first application we worked on was multilingual communication, so translation, machine translation specifically. And what our technology enables our enterprise customers is to save a lot of time and money on this very traditional process. So to give you an idea, an average enterprise customer of ours saves 7-digit figures by using our technology and giving this to their linguists to work with every day. Now, the cool thing is that it's not only making things cheaper, actually these linguists work 3 to 5 times faster, which means they actually make more money per hour because they can process more orders. And I think that's fundamentally important to understand that this is really a win-win-win situation in that case. And now that the underlying technology of all of this, these transformer models, is exactly the same that's now powering generative AI, we've been venturing since last year now into other use cases, talking about meeting documentation, knowledge discovery, content generation, and there are so many things you can do with that. Again, using our customers' data to really drive the value we can get out of these models, and we're looking forward to replicate the same 50% saving that we have achieved in our first use case and all of these other use cases as well.
Thanks, Chris. Maybe next question to Claire. We heard some really practical examples of how generative AI can help improve your customer experience or to make your processes much more efficient. What are your recommendations for companies who want to start with something like that, to use generative AI? What are the obstacles maybe? What should you do when you start? How do you get to proof of concept and further on?
Yeah. So basically, I would recommend first to look into how generative AI is going to disrupt your business model or your industry. Most people think of ChatGPT, some productivity gain, or things that are going to be done smarter, faster. And of course, this is an important area to investigate in. But what's happening right now is generative AI is just, for all the people working in the technology space, is just as big as the internet, or as big as the arrival of the iPhone. So it's going to be fundamentally changing the way we work, the way we interact, the way we buy. So think of, so for example, how we buy flight tickets. Are we going to go to the search engine, comparison engine? Probably not. We'll probably just chat with the tool. Or the way we search for documents. Are we going to do this manually? No, that will be completely powered by generative AI. So what I would encourage every enterprise looking into generative AI right now is to try to understand what is going to be completely disrupted, what part of your business is going to be changed radically by the arrival of generative AI. So that would be my first advice. And then if you really want to tackle generative AI, I think there are 3 ingredients you need to have. The first one is you need to have the expertise, so you will need to find talent, and talent's not that easy to find, so you will need to be attractive in that space. You will need to have data, and by data I mean high quality data, curated data. The value of generative AI for enterprise lies in the capability of customizing the model on your own data. And this is not that straightforward. It's not something that you can easily upload anywhere. There are data governance questions. There are privacy questions that you need to take into account. And the third point is really the compute. Don't estimate the compute. This is a thing we see first front at NVIDIA. Any generative AI initiative is going, even if now with the foundation model you might need less compute than before, but you will still need an invest in IT and closely involve your IT teams in that endeavor internally, so if you want to be successful. And if you cannot have the 3 components sorted, then you should look at the market. Look at, there's a rich community of startups building awesome solution on generative AI. All the software industries looking at integrating it in their tools, in the CRM and the ERPs and pretty much everywhere. So that would be my recommendation, really. Understand how it's really impacting your business. Don't go for the easy use case that might be nice to have but won't change the way you operate. And be sure that you have the basics sorted and the investment to be ambitious.
So, everyone can start now. If it's just 3 things you have to do, sounds easy. Anna, you already said we need to kind of strike a balance between protecting people, but also giving enterprises the opportunity to use the new technologies in a good way. So what can the German government and politics in general can do to actually help companies to use and uptake generative AI, in your view?
Yeah, I think it's our task to support as well these companies that are developing the technologies, as well as the others that should and can use the technology. And with some of our current measures, I think we are making progress. For example, the question of talents. We are making it much easier to come to Germany right now for IT specialists, for people who want to develop the technology in Germany. It's not necessary to speak German anymore to come to Germany and work here in these kind of companies. I think that is very important, that we see really these kind of experts coming to Germany as an important part. And then, of course, for the startups in the field of generative AI, we need capital in Europe. So we have different instruments for having a more vital venture capital market in Europe. For example, the European Tech Champion Initiative, where we try to really boost big venture funds in Europe. And then, of course, also to make data easy available. There we have the new data institute from the governmental side where we try really to push on all these factors. And then on the other side, to enable companies to use the technologies that might still think it's not relevant for me yet, it's not really fitting into my production processes. And I think that is really important, as you mentioned, that all our companies, also SMEs and others, who might still think it's not relevant for them, that they see there is really so much happening, and it's relevant for every single company. And of course, we try to have networking centers where it's easy to match these kind of SMEs with tech companies to see how they can really use the technology. And I think there is still a way to go to make everyone aware that this is really a technology you should look at, and you shouldn't think that you can do in future as you did in the past with no changes. I think that won't be possible, and we try to support these kind of networking, matchmaking with different institutes.
So that we get more of the places like the Lufthansa Innovation Hub where new customer models are built, and I think you gave us quite a good insight on your vision on how you can build really customer-centered new applications. What would do you have any other examples of what we can do with the technology, or is there something that you could tell us from your experience what is really important to look at when you start such a project?
Yeah, I think, there's a reason for why there's so much buzz around AI, and I think AI really touches upon very, very different industries. And I think one of the biggest challenges the travel industry has is sort of, how do you match a travel experience to the right customer or traveler? It's very, very hard actually to solve. And I actually think that AI does a really good job as an underlying technology to help with this matching, so that everyone who wants to travel has this wonderful experience. I think that's one way that I think about it. The second one is obviously to think about the right interface of how we're actually interacting with AI, and is it really this ChatGPT window that you want to all the time open or not? And what I would expect is to actually see emerging of different technologies together. So I always like to say, hey, what's an app we all use and we don't really recognize and realize it? And it's really Google Maps, to be honest, for everything, right? From traffic to actually going to a new place and trying to figure out the next restaurant to go to. And I think it's a fantastic interface, and I would love to see more happening on AI startups and other companies working together with such an interface to really create an immersive and also much richer customer interface for traveling.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, maybe you could give us a little more insight on what your experiences from customer products are. What would you recommend new customers who start such a project? And also maybe you can tell us how did this hype around the last weeks and months, did that affect your business that already started in 2016?
Yeah. So I think the main advice I always give to all of our customers starting with us is how I introduced myself also, is that you have to really think about how you can maintain a competitive edge in this AI game. Because now it's really new and everyone experiments and everyone likes it. The reality is it's going to be much faster that every product, that every inch of this world will have AI in there. So you will not be able to say anymore that we use AI, that's why we're better. The same way you wouldn't put on your website, we use electricity, that's why we're better at what we're doing. And it's funny, but that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be much faster than we can imagine that. So you really got to think through what data sources do you have and how can you make use of this proprietary data for your specific tasks you want to automate. I think that's the main thing regarding that. And then I think how the megatrend affected us is to a very, very positive way. We were coming into enterprises through translations. And let's be honest, translations are pretty boring. We feel this is anyway solved already. It is not, as we can show. But what this megatrend now helps us with is that AI is everywhere in every enterprise. I think we can say that, and we have to be thankful for OpenAI and ChatGPT. You can say about them what they want, what you want. But that thing they achieved very well, that now on every XX agenda is AI. So everyone has to think about how to use it, which for us as a business, that's great because we do not only come through which translations, which is our data source, how we train these models, but we can now go to marketing, to HR, to finance, to all sorts of departments in these organizations and try to figure out how they can make use of these custom language models for their specific tasks and how to automate that. And I think that this thought process is now starting in every organization. There are more and more enterprises building these innovation hubs. Everyone is brainstorming about how to use that. I think this is really great, and we're very excited to be part of that.
Yeah, that sounds really, really exciting. So what do you expect for the next months to come? What we will see, or what will the future bring, except acceleration?
So I guess that's the holy grail, and I bet nobody dares to actually try to predict what's going to happen. One thing is for sure what I just mentioned, it will now AI will come into the enterprise. I think that peak we have now climbed, and we can see a lot more happening there. I think what I can do though, because this industry is evolving so fast, I don't want to make any big predictions, but what I always can do very well is, as the underlying technology of all of this is the same as machine translation, we can just look what happened there. And we see the same trends happening there. Since the beginning of this year, during Christmas, everyone tried ChatGPT. Now every organization is playing a little bit around with the large text giants products. It's easy, they're there, you can use them, cool. But once it gets then into production, people start realizing that the accuracy of these models is not good enough for the use cases they want to make. And on top of that, this entire sovereignty piece is a much bigger problem than it was with just databases. Now these are knowledge systems. So everyone can ask a question in natural language about very sensitive data. So people start really thinking, okay, I want to have my own one. Like, we wouldn't do this for nothing, customizing these models, right? People want that. What they then start usually doing is they try to build this in-house, which is cool. And there are certainly some companies who really have the potential to make this happen. But the problem is talent, we just talked about it briefly as well, is very rare. And then they start looking at providers like us, there are many others out there as well, who help them operationalize their own sovereign solution. So I think that is one trend that I can see. And I actually think when you look at this from a European or a German perspective, this is a really big chance for us. Because we certainly missed the cloud part, but now we have a chance to catch up here. Because we have the data, and we shouldn't forget that. We're a highly industrialized country. We have a lot of data, maybe not in the right structure. We need to clean it a bit. But after that, if we make use of that, we have a really good chance here to not lose the game against the big American tech giants.
Thanks, Chris. Do you share that expectation, Christine and Claire?
I think it's a bit of a race right now. Just this morning, I read a Bloomberg article around the race around the US and China. And I do believe that there's a chance to actually now also go onto the bandwagon and really see how we can actually also, together actually really support the European ecosystem. I actually see quite a lot of potential in AI. I'm really, really excited to see how it's actually going to shape how we search, how the internet is actually redefined. I think it's really one of those pivotal moments where, when the internet came out, it was like this research project, and now look where we are with the internet. And I think it is that it feels like there's this like excitement around it. I am sure there's also a lot of anxiety and kind of like what do we do with it? But I feel confident that this is actually a good thing for the world, and really everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. As we're running out of time, very quick estimate. Is it the chance for you?
Pretty much aligned with what I just said. I think also it's going to solve a number. So first of all, that Germany is very well equipped to compete in that space with, as we said before, wealth of very innovative startups and a wealth of data as well. And I think if we manage to tackle the way we access that data properly and can build business model on it, there's a huge potential. And I think also that it might be an excellent solution to address the lack of staff that we have in many areas. So think of generative AI model as extremely powerful to produce code, for instance, or extremely powerful to learn and teach in a country where we lack, I don't know how many, 50,000 teachers, unless I read. So I believe also that might be a way to address some of the structural economic problems that that Germany has right now. Sorry.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure Anna is happy to hear all these positive expectations and advantages. If you have something urgent to add, Anna, then
just
I'm
to
happy.
add, I think it's good that we have also this optimism, because I think there are relevant large language models also existing already and are developed in Germany. So it's something we should really build on a strong community.
Thanks a lot to all of you, and optimism is the key word. We now free the stage for the next panel, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, all of you.